Solo and welcome back to the Unforced Error. We're here on day three of the US Open. We're going to have a quick look back over the first round, and we're midway through the second round, so we'll kind of have a quick check in there as well. Round one done and dusted. Few surprises, few shocks, as there always is in Grand Slams, but in terms of the very top seeds, in terms of literally number one and number two, we probably didn't learn a lot about the players at the top who would be in contention, who did stay true. There was a lot of relatively easy games for some players, and some you might have expected to be tougher were actually easier, and then other players, one or two carrying injuries and stuff like that, or who are out of form this year, have been leaving the tournament earlier. So it's a great start, and yeah, so we'll go through some of the men's first. I'm not going to go through them all. There's too much to go through, and there's little to talk about in many of them. So Zverev had a beat Vukic. Monfils is having a great year. Gael Monfils, he had a great first round of the French Open, which involves the French crowd singing in. He's a real fan favourite and finding his form again. Nicolas Jarry has had a great year. One of the probably more underrated kind of solid players on tour, really shows up for Grand Slams. The Argentinian cohort, Sebastian Baez beat Coric and Echeverry. Two very tough players, probably don't get talked about tough enough. You talk about draws and getting the luck of the draw. Nobody wants to come across these boys very early in the draw. So they're true. Berrettini continuing his form all the way through as well, and beat Humbert, who is a tough, I think it's the 29th seed. That's a tough first round for Berrettini, and if he can get going like he did at Wimbledon, his game does suit the harder court as well. Murray, Rublev, Sinner all through in the straight set, so not a lot to report there. Alcaraz through in straight sets, and his opponent actually had to retire early, so he was just over an hour on court. Medvedev was done in three sets, an hour and a quarter. Interested in the press conference, was asked about, some of the American press were asking him, how come tennis players often shout at their coaches, and it was just an interesting answer. He wasn't shouting at his coaches in this sense, but that's a common theme when the aggression from tennis players towards themselves, towards them coaches, and he was just talking about how tennis can drive you crazy, and I guess it's important in the first round, as he says. So, sometimes you can wake up, you can have a practice, and everything's going well. Your forehand is in, your backhand has rhythm, it's going where you want to go. And another day, you do the exact same thing. You have a great sleep, you have great preparation, and it's not going your way, or you're hitting things long. And I suppose they often turn to the coaches to explain, to ask them, why this is. Oftentimes there's a mechanical issue or whatever, but just sometimes you can't understand why one thing needs to be working one day and not the next. And that's very true within games. Within 5 sets, there's often momentum switches, and day to day as well. So first rounds are always tricky, they say, in Grand Slams, and that's largely true even when you do get through rather straightforward as well. Francis Tiafoe won easily enough. So did Novak Djokovic, and he won his second round today as well. Relatively straightforward. The shock of the round was Carbelas Baena beating Holger Rune. So Rune would be probably the number 4th seed. Was carrying a bit of a back injury coming into this, but this is still a shock. Was very downbeat in his interview. Now Carbelas Baena, in all these situations, the opponent does not get talked about enough. Regardless of Rune being injured, he's still a top player, even as a young guy. And Carbelas Baena, is a great solid player and took his chance. Oftentimes these players don't show up quite at their best, and it really takes a great performance to capitalize on them. And very often you see kind of lower ranked players not capitalize, often because they're not expecting to, or there's a real kind of situational tactics to really play aggressive and kind of realize the situation But a very downbeat. Rune is still a very young man, and similar age to Alcaraz, but probably a level to go in terms of the mental side of the game. But a real shock in the first round there for Rune. Now we wish him all the best. It's going to be tough to turn around the season going towards the ATP finals at the end. So then on to the women's. Iga beat Peterson and she won again today. Coco Gauff had a very tough round. She beat Siegemund in 3 sets, but it was a longer game than imagined. Siegemund really did get under Coco Gauff's skin. And Coco Gauff, as I said, a lot of people talking about her press conferences are well attended, and there is a real feeling in America that Coco Gauff is going to win this outright, and she had an easier game today against Mira Andreeva, another young star whose book is a talent, and they played earlier in the year and it was a bit longer. But it's a good round for Coco Gauff in one way. Once she's been out on court for a while now, she's got to feel she's been under pressure. She's already handled that, so if she can keep that going now, she will go far. Haddad Maia beat Sloane Stephens in a great game. Haddad Maia is always entertaining, a very tough battle. Haddad Maia brought the aggression right from the start and brought out the best in Sloane Stephens as well. Unfortunately, Haddad Maia did lose today, but that was a great game. Caroline Wozniacki won straightforward in her return. Danielle Collins won, Fruitova won, Pegula won, Svitolina won, and Rybakina won, all in relatively easy. Rybakina and Pegula you would have thought would tougher rounds, but they seem to deal with them, which shows that they're feeling good early on. Ayla Tomljanovic on her return beat Yuta Verdi in a 3-setter as well. Another return, Lady Brady won on her return. The big shock, Sabalenka won as well during her night session. The big shock, it's a shock and not a shock. Marisova beat Maria Sakkari. Maria Sakkari, I've talked plenty about her on this show and my admiration for her, but that's the 3rd Grand Slam in a row now where she's lost in the first round, and a heartbroken woman in the press conference after struggling to explain what happened. She was beaten by a great player, but she didn't play near what she could do. And she was asked about what she's going to do in the future. She's going to contemplate a break from tennis now as well. So your heart goes out to all these people who lose in the first round. It's serious business. There's a lot of money on the line. Grand Slams, it's the last Grand Slam of the season, and when you're looking for answers and you don't get past the first round, it doesn't do a lot for your confidence. So congratulations, Marisova, but we wish Maria Sakkari well, and we hope to see her back to her best soon. Ons Jabeur as well won. She won in a tougher game. Her form's still questionable in terms of the second week of this tournament, and we'll see how we get on. So that's a quick recap of the first round. As I said, no real shocks today. Ben Shelton currently on court. Victoria Azarenka is down the first set. Djokovic won earlier. Sabalenka won earlier. Haddad Maia is out. Leylah Fernandez is out in the first round as well. So that's a quick recap, and we'll be back later in the week with more.